and gentlemen, welcome to the Fiber Connex 2020 conference, brought to you by Digital Council Africa and headline sponsor, Inc.
Good afternoon, or good morning rather, everyone, and very welcome to this next session this morning with DFA. It's a great privilege for me to be joined by Vino, Govender from Dark Fiber Africa, one of our founding members that have been a part of the Digital Council before the council was even initially founded. So some of you might know this, a few might not know this, but DFA was one of the original founding members of the Digital Council many years ago, more than 10 years ago, and felt very strongly that there was a great need for an industry association that could support the sector with independent grassroots education and development on the role of fiber in telecommunications networks. So, of course, they helped us in the beginning days to become established. They brought on board some other founding members, and 10 years later, we're very privileged that they're still a member of the Digital Council. They're still a big supporter of the work that we do. We're very grateful to have a very strong relationship with them, and yeah, so this morning, it's really a great privilege for me to bring on board somebody that I'm sure needs very little introduction. Vino Govender has also been with, within the sector for many years, more than 21 years, in fact. He's led go-to-market strategies and formulation and worked on the execution side of those strategies for many companies, companies such as Altec, SAB Miller, MTN South Africa, Vodacom, Nokia, Siemens, to name some. In these roles, he acted strategically in B2C and B2B marketing roles, and then in 2015. Vino joined Dark Fiber Africa as the executive for marketing, brand and communications at the time. But then, of course, in 2017, his portfolio got expanded to include product innovation, which is, of course, anybody that knows a bit about DFA will understand that that's a critical part of what they do. In September 2018, rather, he assumed the role of executive strategy, mergers and acquisitions, and innovation, and functions as an ecosystem advisor for Squidnet, a subsidiary company that is 100% owned by DFA in the IoT space. And for those of you that know, and those that don't, Sigfox is the only Squidnet, rather, is the only Sigfox licensed operator in South Africa. Vino is a chartered marketer registered with the Marketing Association of South Africa, and is a member of its marketing board subcommittee. He holds a BTech marketing from the University of Johannesburg, as well as a telecoms mini MBA from Informa, and a Master of Business Administration from Wits University. So a very, very welcome to you, big welcome to you today, Vino. I'm really excited to have you. And I think I'm more excited to have this conversation with you. And I was really excited, when we first reached out and we started talking to you about the conversation and the presentation today. You said that, you wanted to talk about, navigating COVID-19 and beyond. And I thought, that is such a critical conversation for all of us, because it's a real opportunity to look at how telcos perform during this pandemic. How did we hold this thing together in the first place? I mean, we always speak about, nobody could see this coming. We were all blindsided, and everybody had to, in a very short space of time, reinvent themselves, come up with strategies to sustain themselves. There were so many unknowns within companies. I remember just and within the sector as a whole, those early days and the meetings that we used to have, and preempting and plan B and plan C, and but you were sort of, in the throes of this, with DFA, and, you guys sort of had to come together as a team. And there's so many aspects where the pandemic had a real impact. And I think for me personally, one of the things that I've seen standing back is that, the companies that have got good management and executive teams flourished during this time. But the companies where it wasn't so strong, I think struggled to find their way in the early days. But certainly DFA wasn't like that. But let me hand over to you. We look forward to listening to you for the next bit.
Thank you, Juanita, for the welcome, and good morning or good afternoon to all on the call. Before I even start, I would like to extend on behalf of the DFA management team and leadership team, I would like to extend a great big thank you to all our customers, our suppliers, our partners out there. We know we don't operate in a bubble; we operate in an ecosystem. And it's been a challenging time, like Juanita mentioned, for all of us. We've been beyond day 242, I think, around since lockdown. And who knows? Who would have predicted that would have been, a pandemic of this impact that kind of reshaped a lot of the way in which we operate, in which we engage with customers, our operating models of the business, and how do we, the way we will continue to operate in future. So having said that, I'm just going to move and share a presentation on some key points. To what Juanita just said, many companies may have struggled with this. And when we were first kind of, when this hit us, let's put it that way, I mean, as a strategist, we got into a room with the team and looked at what are the different scenarios, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the scenarios, right? What's the rate of infection going to be? Your numbers coming out from being forecasted. What the infection rates are going to be? How's that going to impact companies? How that's going to impact society? What's going to be that impact into the business? What's the recovery rate? And we all were looking at these V shapes, Q shapes, and W shapes, and L-shaped curves, recovery case, and taking a view on these things. And when you look at all these things and being surrounded with so much information and so many options, what we kind of found or realized that let's kind of focus very precisely with a high level of depth on key levers or key pivot points that would ensure, firstly, that we take our organization, and when I talk about our organization, I'm referring to not just our internal organization, but taking through our customers, taking our suppliers through this phase. And while taking a view or a scenario or a set of scenario views of the outcome, in that journey of moving through, we have the ability to tweak and adjust as we go along the way, because we were dealing with uncertainty, and we had to acknowledge that we are dealing in an environment of high uncertainty, and distilling down the key focus areas that we should be looking at and getting our organization, our people, our operations, our staff, our value streams to kind of look at and make those central to guiding the actions through COVID-19 and our response to it. In doing that, we would have a basis for moving through in a very focused manner, but also identifying those areas where we could tweak up or down, to get through this pandemic period. And there's a lot of talks around the second wave, that would come. But ensuring that as we move through phase one or wave one, we build the resiliency to weather the storm that may come, with wave two. Right? COVID-19 has really reshaped the way we work, the way we socialize, the way we communicate, the way we acquire and consume services, the way we access services as well. And COVID-19 has significantly shifted the operating model for us, the operating model for society, the operating model for businesses as well. And what we see is, at the same time, COVID-19 has also accelerated, the digital transformation efforts or parts of many organizations and society as well. And in doing so, you'll find that we see this organizations and society become more digitally leveraged, if you could say that. And we see that, I mean, just the mere fact that we're sitting here and I'm speaking to a conference on a digital platform, that's a fundamental shift from the way conferences and meetings used to be conducted previously, and it's here to stay. This shift is not temporary, we know that. It's going to persist, and it's going to permeate every sector, every business, and the maturity will increase. The maturity to adopt and use digital technologies will increase. Access will become more pervasive. We just a very simple statement in that the sector was declared a critical sector. During the pandemic, when the entire country was locked down, but the ICT sector and telecommunications and infrastructure was declared a critical sector, critical infrastructure sector, to ensure that life kind of goes on, that we address risks, that we find new models of extending service delivery. It was critical also for providing the platform and the communication networks for managing, tracking, and curtailing efforts to spread the pandemic. So what we see is that, in summary, is that COVID-19 has had a fundamental impact, and this will go on. Now, having said that, we have to take a view, like I mentioned, from a DFA perspective, on what will we do as a business? How will we adapt? Because we had to adapt. Every organization had to adapt. Countries had to adapt. Sectors, society had to adapt as well. I mean, I'm sure you all experienced how schooling has changed, how education has changed, how content consumption patterns have changed, even traffic patterns. I mean, what used to be peak traffic capacity is now, being that peak traffic, the prior peak traffic capacity is being exceeded in the non-peak hours. That's the shift. Recently I looked at an analyst report where last year, well, 2018, where they forecasted, the market share and uptake of broadband, fiber-based broadband specifically, and where the larger growth and was seen in what we call quality of service and the lower shift on broadband. And now on the revised forecast, that it has swung around where broadband capacity or connectivity and user access has grown at a high rate, and where you find Metro Ethernet or quality of service trending downwards. It's just because of the shift in terms of where people are working from home, and also companies requiring lower bandwidths within the business, which are less occupied now because the employees are not at the office anymore. So having said that, like I mentioned earlier, in this, what I would call early, being faced early with the pandemic, we had to choose kind of focus areas that we are going to base our let's call it strategy or adaptation, to weathering through the pandemic. The first one we looked at, and in no particular order, but the first point we looked at was focusing on the health and well-being of our employees. Now, our employees were definitely affected either directly or indirectly because their families were affected. At the same time, you find that, while you sit in a work environment, it's also a social environment. There's also a level of energy that exists within working teams and working environments. And, all of a sudden now being just overnight, teams were kind of virtualized, working from home. It kind of made a difference to the way of work, their operating model. Couldn't walk over to someone just whenever I needed quick help to have a chat. Hey, I'm having an issue with this. Can you just sort it out? Because we all rely on email, but the personal contact is also important in the work environment. So focusing on the health and well-being of our employees was one of the key things that we kind of looked at. We said um, um, for our organization to function, we need to ensure that our employees are highly engaged, and the engagement is a result of one of the results of engagement is having ensuring that their health and their well-being is in good stead. The other key focus area was focusing on our customers. Now we have a number of customers segments that we deal with as a wholesale open access infrastructure provider, and we do layer 2 connectivity as well. We deal with segments ranging from the mobile network operators down to certain enterprise clients across tier 1 and tier 2 ISPs, wireless internet service providers, and even the fixed fiber network operators who deliver fiber to the home or require backhaul connectivity for their FTTX access networks. So, and these customers were faced with a number of challenges, right? Firstly, they also had to accelerate deployment to support the need for increased data consumption and access and availability. Whether it was on a mobile network where mobile traffic kind of increased and this needed to be compensated for by the network by deploying additional sites, intensification, or even looking at sites that were not backhauled by fiber, that were sitting with microwave backhaul, but the capacity warranted fiber backhaul. Whether it was ranging from that or whether it was extending to the wireless internet service providers, where fiber density wasn't at a rate or at a level that warranted fiber access deployment, so they were being serviced by these wireless network guys, and wireless connectivity kind of took off, and they required increased backhaul capacity as well, because that's it's kind of bottleneck to them delivering services to their customers. So, it's very important for us to kind of focus on these customers, being empathetic and understanding what are the needs and challenges faced by each of these segments. Also understanding that, hey, these customers were also facing challenges from their end customers. And a simple example I'll use is, gyms were closed. And there were certain ISPs, customers of ours that were servicing gyms. Now, without revenue from those gyms, how do they still kind of, manage their financial sustainability and, the obligations to us? And I'll talk about that later. But just to finish up on that point, the key focus area for us was our customers. Being a infrastructure, I would call it FiberCo and NetCo, because we also operate the layer 2 network. And we build a network, we build out links, we light up capacity on some of these links. So we have a large operational environment. We have infrastructure that needs to be maintained, hands-on tools with technicians out on site. And our network spans over 12,000 route kilometers. And so understanding the impact on operations was important. Also remembering that being a critical infrastructure or critical sector identified by government, we could not drop our SLAs. Basically, the country was depending on communications and mobile and fixed, for service delivery, for monitoring and tracking, and just to mention a few, for the delivery of e-health types of services. And, ultimately that comes down to ensuring that the infrastructure upon which that data or traffic moves is resilient and the uptime is 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 carrier grade, I could say that. And then also, the other thing is point that we need to focus on is financial risk and scenario planning, or financial risk based on scenario planning, and that's important as well, right? We are business as well. We have we have obligations to our stakeholders, shareholders, financing houses, and customers as well. So, focusing on financial risks and risks and based on scenario planning was another key kind of area that we focused on. So, having looked at these 4 key focus areas, I'm just should quickly jump into, what was the specific action or approaches that we took in each of these areas. Why did we do it? And what were the results? Because there are measurable results. And the reason for us, or for me sharing this presentation with you, is not just to say, hey, TFA, we've done a great job, but it's also contributing to the role that we have in the sector. Like I say, we don't exist in a bubble. We work in an ecosystem. We're an infrastructure provider. On top of that, there's a layer 3 network operator. On top of that, there are layer 4 plus application network services. And then there's devices that sit on top at the layer 7 and applications at the layer 7 level as well. So point is that we work in an ecosystem, and our contribution is also just to share what we focused on, and hopefully that would provide some value in terms of what you could look at as well. And one of the things I look forward to is also post the specification, if you guys out there can also share some of the key things that you have done that have made you better through this pandemic. So let's go quickly on employees, right? When we said focusing on employees, our objectives were very simple, but very discreet, let's put it that way. Our objective was to minimize the risk for employees in the workplace. We also have to address the issues of compliance. There was compliance that came with the regulations at each level. And at the same time, we had to address the physical and emotional strain placed on employees. And employees were kind of scared. They were scared that they would get this thing. Some of them were sitting with comorbidities. Some of their family members were sitting with comorbidities. Just as we'd assume that everybody, being human beings, we are unique, right? And we'd assume that everybody will just make the transition to working remotely and working online easily. It can be stressful for some people. And remember, the other thing is this is a significant change, right? Now, not everybody is wired for change. So change management, had to be addressed in this entire process. So we looked at policies. So, policies that would make it possible for us to achieve these objectives when it came through to, these factors that I mentioned. And so quite quickly, it's fortunate that our Chief of Human Capital and a team were already kind of pondering, the workforce of the future and thinking around those things. And so it was quick for them to kind of, sign up and implement a remote working policy, which gave employees a lot of structure and a lot of guidance around how remote working would operate at the same time. But it also gave them an opportunity to assess, where they were falling short in terms of the resources that they required to work remotely. from a compliance perspective, especially with the workplace, our check policy that looked at how we handle this from a safety perspective, health perspective, was documented, and then we started. It was an opportunity to now implementing what I would call the ODR type of plan with regards to check. So check policies uh, were 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 kind of, I wouldn't say drafted from scratch because they were existing, but they were tweaked specifically uh, in regards to COVID-19 being a highly contagious type of pandemic. And our business continuity plans were invoked. And so when we look at these things, they exist. I mean, I'm sure they just exist in a lot of your organizations. But the reality was, how often do we kind of test it at full throttle? And this is where I must commend the Czech team for their ability to communicate Czech policies. The communication of policy was important to monitor compliance of policy. Because in the early days, you guys know, right? I mean, there's a deep cleansing that needed to happen at the office spaces as well, and also ensure that that processes were kind of put in place to look at it from a preventative measure as well. So that's the one approach was around policies. The other one was around active communication. So when we start focusing on employees, the tools that we use for policies, and the next one is active communication and resourcing. And active communication was carried out to ensure that our employees are aware of our policies. So, there was a lot of content, digital content, rich content that was developed and distributed to our employees. And when I mentioned rich content, remember, and I come from a marketing background, we had to ensure that the content was engaging. Getting a mailer and stuff, kind of becomes a bit boring to read now and again, especially when you're sample work online. But when we start looking at rich content, animated videos, content that would that would drive engagement, stimulate interest, and using a plethora of platforms. So we use the Yammer platform that we have. We use our intranet as a platform, and there's other platforms that we use. I mean, team platforms. So we have a team Infocoms platform, which is which moved online as well. But to ensure that these things were discussed at a team level, Infocoms level as well. Infocoms stands for informed communications. So a lot of active communication that happened up front to ensure that our employees were aware of these policies. Uh, Employees were also, I mean, they saw what was happening around them. There's certain business sectors that were being to Section 189s and doing short times and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of doubt and uncertainty regarding job uncertainty, as an example. Now, the important thing is to look at the right-hand side. We're driving towards employee engagement, and all these things detract from employee engagement. And our challenge or our task or objective was, as a leadership team, how do we ensure that through this, we quell those doubts and uncertainty and ensure that our employees are actively engaged, not just engaged, but actively engaged. And, we're providing them with leadership and direction. So while we, like I mentioned, did the standard communication around WHO, World Health Organization protocols on disease prevention, what was really important or what made a big difference to us was we implemented weekly company town halls. And the weekly company town halls, if I could just describe it as in how it worked, was firstly it started with our CEO Tinus Mulder speaking to our staff on Teams, the scheduled meeting on Teams, and we started talking to staff and in our organization on where the company is going, and very transparently, and that's the important thing, what we need to focus on, reassuring them in terms of the stability of the business, how each one can contribute to ensuring that we remain sustainable. What do we need to focus on from a delivery perspective? Because remember, delivery, the ability to deliver and execute was limited by, compliance measures. And then also, and this is important, with everybody working from home, also, encouraging them to kind of talk to people if they're feeling stressed, extending, the platform that we have on ICAS for people that needed help to talk around things. So not talking to them, just engaging them just on a work level, but but showing empathy and engaging them also on their personal matters that could be an issue to them, and providing them with tools and resources on how to cope, and some things. I mean, take a walk, ensure that you take a break, ensure that you eat healthy. In fact, what we did implement at DFA was, and it's still carrying through now, was, in those early days, everybody being strong by online meetings. And we made a call as a leadership team that there's a certain time, an hour in the day, where there will be no internal meetings scheduled, which means we forced our staff to kind of take that break that they needed. And we did that, not just because, we felt, that would improve productivity. No, we did it because we don't want our staff and our people to burn out, and work continuously without breaks, which would compromise the well-being as well. So, and might I say, those weekly town halls have really evolved over the weeks. I mean, like we say, we're in day 242, and those town halls have evolved where, it's evolved where we out of the COVID type of centric discussion that it was. Now we get teams to kind of talk around products in the business. We talk around, strategy initiatives in the business, how we tweaking our strategy, what we're looking at from an operating model transformation perspective, how we transforming the business digitally. So, it's something that started, that was birthed out of COVID, and the intended, I mean, the days we have close to 300, 400 employees online for this weekly town halls. So active communication was really, I would say, a critical point that we focused on, the way that we see it evolve, and the engagement levels we see in terms of guys that come on to these calls shows us that our employees are engaged. And then the last one is around resourcing. And resourcing, when we talk around resourcing, we want to ensure that that our employees were provided with the resources, the tooling, and equipment, and access to those resources to support their well-being and to equip them to continue working. And so, having said that, some of the key things that we had to do was look at, providing our staff with data and connectivity, care and counseling. We even went to the extent of ensuring that we implement a buddy system, because, we had a few employees that were affected. Now I can tell you, I was one of those employees that was personally affected. I contracted COVID-19 as well. And, we take it, and when you're in the situation in isolation, having, in my case was different because my entire family was affected. So we all were in isolation. But, having that buddy system there, for someone to talk to just kind of check up on you, and being in a senior role, having a reassurance from my CEO every now and again with a WhatsApp to say, take a break, things are going okay, just recover, take the rest that you need. but work will go on, return when you will. All these things may seem may seem frivolous, but when you're in that situation as a person, as a human being, it means a lot knowing that I'm going through this thing. There's so much uncertainty around the outcome. It's not a nice thing to go through, but having the support from a body within your organization, from your peer group and work as well, really does make a difference. And then the result that we see, and I'm just going to talk to the slides on the left. So what you find is that we measure our employee engagement, which goes to a max of 10. So it's a scale, and we use a tool called Peakon, through starting from before COVID-19, moving through COVID-19, and ending up where we are today in October 2020. We're seeing an upward trend in employee engagement, and it results in us moving from pre-COVID, below the technology benchmark, to where we are today, which is zero point 0.4 above the benchmark for the technology sector. So, just to close up there, focusing on employees was important for us, judging, looking at the focus areas and judging from the results that we see on the right hand side kind of worked. So it was good sharing that with you guys. The other area of focus that I talked about was focusing on our customers. Now, we all exist because of a customer. And, it was very important for us to acknowledge that, JFA has grown to a successful business because of its customers. And, as we move through this period of uncertainty, it was important for us to let our customers know that we empathize with them, and that we are here to go through this journey with them. And there are four key areas, and I'll talk about these things and just give you a bit more detail around that. So our customers, we deliver services to them and we maintain links to them. So, that's just on the operation side of the business, but we also interact with them in other aspects, in sales, in marketing, in finance. So, it goes without saying that, the first thing that we had to do was minimize our risk, in physical interactions with them, even in delivering services as well. So, it was a shift to the online environment. It was a shift through using platforms such as Teams and Zoom. But at the same time, it was also keeping in constant communication with them, informing them in terms of what's the status of our business, inquiring from them what's the status with their business, what are their challenges, and that will feed on to the rest of this conversation, understanding what are the major challenges that they're facing as well as a direct impact result of COVID-19. So that was the first thing. We also had to ensure that in our interaction with customers, from a physical perspective, that we protect them as well. So not just because it was a compliance, compliance was mandatory, but because of the safety of our customers, we actively sourced and ensured that we had sufficient stock of PPE and desanitizing resources, let's put it that way, to ensure the safety of our customers when interacting with them, and when because there were we still had to continue operations, but in the early stages of COVID-19, we were not doing civil build. We decided not to do civil build or pursue civil build because we didn't want to take the risk of disrupting other services. But where we could deliver services in areas where only optical work was required, we took on that work because the connectivity was most often required in one of the critical COVID sites. So in delivering that, we ensured that we had a shared code. We monitored our teams, ensuring that they followed process and protocol in interacting with customers. The other one was an area that we spent a lot of time on, which is the security and stability aspect of our customers. Now, a lot of our customers, take our infrastructure services and develop end user services for business and consumer end users. And COVID-19 had an impact on the end users, and we must acknowledge that. You would have seen a number of customers or end users were companies at kind of which implemented pay cuts, salary adjustments, put guys on kind of short time. It had an impact on, and some industries were directly affected. When we look at the hospitality industry, the leisure industry, the hospitality, leisure, restaurants, retail as well, because there were limited hours of retail. So a lot of these industries were kind of affected, and these were sectors serviced by our customer. So, providing, pragmatic help to customers in financial distress was something that we took seriously. The way we approached this was we established what we call it a COVID-19 customer kind of committee within the business, where we kind of reviewed, there were, in the word pragmatic is, there were certain conditions that had to be met, where we looked at, okay, if these conditions are met, how do we help these customers, in terms of, deferring payments or, looking at payment type holiday, and looking at each case in merit to mostly look at, is the request justified, and pragmatically, how can we extend help to these customers? And I must say, I think we've for some of our customers out there who've been at the receiving or been at the positive end of this, can attest to the types of relaxations that we had to make just to carry them through. And this comes with having empathy and understanding of those customers, constant engagement with them, not just at the sales of an admin level, but at an executive level as well. And so that that was something that we kind of focused on. Even our customers that were stuck at home. So what we do a lot is when we engage with our customers is when you're dealing with customers physically prior to COVID, there's always we've developed a relationship with them, and it's a human relationship as well, because people deal with people, and in this isolated type of environment, it was a bit taxing for some of those individuals. So I guess we looked at creative ways of engaging these customers. I know some departments used to run these type of virtual type of events, just quizzes and stuff that you could do online just to break the tension and break the monotony. So that's kind of addressing the emotional need as well, and it depends from customer to customer. I mean, some customers on the other end were like just under a lot of pressure, and they required on-the-fly reporting. So we had to focus our teams in terms of gathering the data and delivering the reporting that they would require to deliver to their organization as well. So, you know, so providing that security and stability to our customers was important. And those were just some of the actions that we implemented. Convenience and ease of use and promoting and guiding the shift to online channels is important for us. And we're on that journey, it's part of our digital transformation journey that DFA has embarked on. And fortunately for us, in hindsight, we had started this journey prior to COVID, So, and where we're going towards, or where we're moving towards, is to reach a stage of, I would call it zero touch, frictionless business engagement. So, that could be achieved through a number of functionalities that will be delivered on a customer portal. So, I mean, we're not fully there yet. It's a journey that we're on, but promoting and guiding the shift online channels in this sense meant that, not just from a communication and engagement perspective, but providing them with reporting, providing them with data that they would have required, and in some instances, giving where it was possible, giving customers API integration into some of our systems, so they could consume that data within their operating environment and their systems, for managing dashboards that they would require to manage them through this crisis. And the last one was emotional and feeling of trust, which is kind of linked to security and stability. But like I mentioned, people deal with people. We are very used, especially our salespeople, in terms of they maintain good relationships with our customers, meeting them on a regular basis, eliciting needs, requirements, shortcomings as well, insights in terms of how we could be improving our service, to kind of meet that requirement. While we moved onto online platforms, we also showed our seriousness and our intent to engage with customers. And what we found was that it facilitated discussions with customers where the leadership team of DFA, and when I say the leadership, I'm talking about the C-level as well, participated in a lot of these sessions and still continue to participate in the sessions with customers. And it will persist because, I think that's one of the lasting impacts of this, what we refer to as new normal, because, time and distance is taken away now. And interacting seamlessly through digital platforms have proved that they can work. So that's one of the ways that we kind of ensure that we still were present or reachable and contactable with our customers. And yeah, caring about the community, it was also important because, like I mentioned, people deal with people. We don't exist in a bubble. We're in an ecosystem, and one of the components of the ecosystem is society and community. And in our normal course of duty in DFA, this is not just a CSI thing, but in a normal course of duty, where there's connectivity required in schools and it's on our roads, so we kind of deliver that connectivity. But yeah, with COVID came a lot of requirements for connecting what we have termed as COVID critical sites. In the early days when COVID just dawned upon us, there was an ICT infrastructure stream that was created and championed by the FTTX or Digital Council that brought stakeholders together across the industry from different sectors. And when you sit in that in some of those meetings, and you find that there's a need to connect certain clinics or COVID monitoring sites, and the parties came together to do that. And we, as DFA, also had to look at how could we continue to close that gap. One of the things that we did, I remember working with in partnership with Reflex, was delivering connectivity to Bella, to the patient ward, so that people who were in quarantine could remain contactable with their family on the devices. It also enabled doctors and nursing staff to monitor patients remotely as well. And then, we looked at other clinics in Pietermaritzburg. We connected another 2. And, so the point is, here is, we play a broader role in the ecosystem rather than just providing infrastructure and connectivity to network operator partners. We also have a contribution to make to society, and our customers, working together with our customers to do that, kind of, stirs up an emotional bond, and also instills trust in us that we're here, to fulfill a broader purpose. And all this comes down to CX, customer experience. And it's one of the pillars of DFA, customer experience. And when we look at the impact of what our approach on this on customers and the actions that we took, what we do see is that pre-COVID, we are sitting with an NPS last year, pre-COVID, at 35%. This year, at September, October, when we ran our NPS, we moved it up by 5 percentage points, which is coming through a pandemic period. And when we all know the impact that has had on businesses and customers, it's a great achievement. We're not going to stop there. We're still moving forward. But the point here is that coming through COVID, getting from a 5 to moving it by 5 percentage points does indicate a significant measure of success. Okay. The next point, and we'll move on quickly on this year, was impact on operations. And when we looked at impact operations, there's 3 focus areas that we looked at. We looked at supply chain, business continuity, and technology. From a supply chain perspective, that wasn't that difficult for us to do on standard equipment. So to ensure, and that's one of the first things that we did actually when COVID was, do we have enough stock to carry us through? And we had secured stock at, I think it was for around a 3-month period. But at the same time, we also were not going to kind of, we had to manage that stock as well, and also ensure that it was used efficiently, for the right purpose. So stock management and supply chain management was a critical area that we looked at. And then the new requirement for PPE and was kind of made for us, which we sourced and ensured that we had adequate stock up, not just for us, but ensuring that we had stock to cover, our contractors and suppliers and partners as well. So supply chain, so a huge focus from a supply chain perspective. Business continuity, I mean, this plan was there. It was just to ensure that the business continued to address compliance, but at the same time, compliance, but at the same time did not impede our capacity to deliver. So, and as I mentioned earlier, it was revetting and retweaking our shape of business continuity and invoking our disaster recovery plans, and keeping a tight handle on that, tweaking it as we went along. And we actually shared our shake and business continuity plans with other industry stakeholders. Purely because we had ours built from an infrastructure provider space, so it was easy to kind of share for reuse by other infrastructure players, including like tower players and data center players as well. So in that group that we had, that the FTTX Council and Digital Council had set up, we used that platform to share those standards and practices that we had defined. But more importantly, and this is the more importantly, is that we have to start leaning excessively more towards technology. But like I mentioned earlier, COVID-19 accelerated the digital transformation and adoption plan in most businesses. And some of the technology that I'll talk about, provide some insight around is IoT technology. So we had IoT technologies deployed on some of our passive equipment, such as manuals, to proactively monitor and measure intrusion or a possible threat in the passive network. And we started looking at deploying IoT type of devices and use cases for monitoring across more passive elements. I think the other one was robotic process automation. The robotic process automation, basically deals with using bots to replace repetitive and mundane tasks. And what we kind of did here, was especially when we start looking at the active network. So the active network has a network management system and an NMS system, and we used RPA to kind of look at the messaging coming out of the NMS system, classifying them, and moving them into the assurance area. And this enabled us to, these algorithms on the back of this enabled us to have a predictive view of network failure or possible points of failure. And at the same time, ensure that we are proactive and preventative in the maintenance in these areas. So, it facilitated a preventative, proactive, and proactive approach to network assurance. And then we kind of use AI. There's a lot of data that we're getting from network elements as well, active and passive, to kind of do heat mapping. So the algorithms did heat mapping and clustering, and could then inform us of geographical areas or nodes in the network that would be prone to possible failure, which meant that we could once again be proactive and preventative in our approach to network maintenance and insurance. And then once again, when we look at the measure that we achieved, we attained the measure north of 99.95. So I'm just correct that. It's north of 99.95, and we currently on 99.99 on the infrastructure through COVID period. So our network availability uptime is currently 99.99, and we maintain that north of 99.95 through COVID. So that tells you that from an operations perspective, considering that we had limited ability to kind of move around and dealing with a different type of environment, a very low touch environment, we were able to maintain in that time, which was important, right? Because considering that a number of mobile network high sites, WISP high sites, fiber to the home network, access networks are backhauled by this infrastructure. And then lastly, moving on to the next focus area was the impact on financial sustainability. Now, this picture is not new to any one of us, right? I'm sure when I put this up, you all must maybe kind of nod and say, yeah, this is a challenge that was not just unique to DFA. We all have to look at balance, curtail expenditure, preserving cash, and maintaining liquidity, while at the same time, continuing to expand to meet the increasing demand that came through. And this was driven by growing reliance on digital services. What kind of helped us originally was that we weren't going to do a lot of silver build and a lot of focus more on the optical build, purely because it was less disruptive and posed lesser risk to other services, water, electricity, and you don't just you really don't want to disrupt water and electricity and these services when when people are at home and working from home. More importantly, you don't disrupt a service that's feeding a hospital or one of these critical sites. So that's one of the things that we looked at. We kind of, discretionary spend, we kept a very accurate, we zeroed discretionary spend and kept a very tight handle on this discretionary spend. In terms of our order book as well, we prioritize our order book in terms of, firstly, which orders are firstly servicing a COVID critical site. I mean, we had to do that, focusing on order books, on orders that are going to high sites mobile, backhaul type of infrastructure. And at the same time, they keeping a very close handle on our costs to deliver. So in our world, on the civil side of it, when we moved into the civil work side of it, let's keep placing a very tight handle on our cost per meter. That's for some of the things that we looked at. And fortunately for us, we had on the active network, we had built a lot of headroom on the core network prior to this. So, we could accommodate the increase in demand for capacity without the need, for incurring additional capex costs, because we had done that prior to COVID-19. So, I mean, it ultimately came down to this, balancing what's on the left with the demand that was on the right. I might say this, let me just talk around, active services and creating the headroom on the core network. When I talked about customers, a number of our customers use active services for backhaul. DFA actually has some FTTB, very limited, FTTH as well. And because of the investment that we had made in creating headroom capacity in the core network, and some of the things that we were able to do was double provide additional bandwidth or increased capacity on the bandwidth for both backhaul and access without necessarily increasing the price. And that enabled end users as well as our service providers, our customers, to meet the demand of increased data throughput without additional expense incurred. So just to close off then, what's the part of the next normal for DFA? Well, one thing we acknowledge is that our leverage in terms of digital technology is going to be key for us. It's going to be key for creating the zero-touch customer experience, the zero-touch customer interaction, that ease of doing business with us. In fact, ease of being the ease of business or effort of doing business with us is a new measure that we've now introduced into the business to ensure that we can give you a great experience, but at the same time we want to improve the effort expended to do business with DFA. So the part of the new normal for DFA, it's, in my view, is it's the view that we share is that it's a journey. It's continuous. It will move along. It'll tweak, but it's centered around four kind of things that we look at. Firstly, a new normal or a new environment or a new market and context requires an operating model that's suited to that context. So, we will continually look at organizing our resources and tweaking and adapting our operating model to be relevant to the markets and customers that we serve, and then the demands that they are placing on us. Having said that, digital leverage is going to be a key element or tool or arrow in the quiver. We are recrafting the digital strategy. And when I say recrafting, not starting with scratch, but more tweaking. And this also involves a number of things, rebalancing our product roadmap and the operating model to be relevant to customers, like I mentioned. And it's a journey. So, definitely when we often hear the word transformation or digital transformation, it's a transformation, it's a journey, it's a continuous process. And for us to be successful in this, to point three, we'll continually engage our customer in our transition. The transition that we move, the objective at the end of it is to deliver a better customer experience, is to deliver relevant services or a relevant operating model that meets the needs of our customers. And as we do that, we'll drive up efficiency and create capacity in the organization and capability in the organization to pivot and scale, not just within our current product sets or current product categories, but to shift to adjacent product and service categories. Because those efficiencies and those capabilities become transferable to adjacent service categories and adjacent markets. And so hope that was insightful for you all. That's just a journey that we've gone through and that we as DFA are going through. And once again, thank you all, not just for listening to me and going through this presentation, but thank you all, our customers and partners, for supporting us through this time as well. Good.
Thank you, Vino. That was very interesting. I think about sort of, the beginning of the year and possibly end of last year. I don't know when DFA holds their strategy session, so I'm sort of whenever it was. And, I sort of am thinking about so many companies that must have gone through immense strategy sessions. And I think to a large extent, a lot of it they've had to throw out the window and regroup and start again. And certainly what I see, from the presentation you did just now, it's like it's really extensive work. And, there's a lot of components that one maybe didn't even think of. And certainly a lot of things that one hasn't even considered, prior to the pandemic and now have to deal with. It's not even, I think, the nuances of, the underlying stuff, the stuff of like trying to get people to accept the digital, to digitally transform and, and even just at a personal level to get people to start finding their rhythm and, and in working from home. And remember the early days, I mean, people had their children at home locked up with them, small children, that needed constant attention. So, I mean, to have come through it at this level and seeing the other side is really phenomenal. And but I know that the DFA leadership team, and yeah, I know it's a phenomenally strong team and a very close team, and it's no wonder that you guys are where you are. So congratulations on all the good work also done by DFA. From our side, thank you once again for also supporting the Digital Council and the work that we do. And I must say, it's there's always somebody from DFA that puts their hand up to support in working groups and on writing of policy papers or to participate in some, in any one of the things that we do. So thank you very much to you and the team. It's much appreciated. Thank you for your time today on this presentation, and yeah, all the best for the balance of 2020. I've got no doubt that you will make a great success of it.
Well, thank you, Juanita.
Thank you for participating in this session of the Fiber Connex 2020 conference. Stay tuned for the next session.